All right, welcome back to another episode of Unfiltered. I got a couple of really good guys with me today. I got to introduce Officer Joe Byram and Detective Sergeant Cameron Pilgrim. These two guys actually get to do a program with, it's called Protecting Our Kids in a Digital World. It concentrates on the understanding of what children go through in a society where everything is online now. And so I wanted to jump right into it and kind of get some questions going. So I know a lot of parents are going to ask the first question, I want to look at my kids' stuff. I want to be involved in their world, but they bought their phone, or I'm a divorced mom and the dad bought the phone and gave it to the daughter, and I go to take the phone away, but I can't because he owns that phone. He's the one that gave it to her, so I don't have any rights on that. How correct am I in making that statement? Do parents not have rights when it comes to taking their kids' stuff?
Yeah, so that is far from the truth. So according to Texas law and in the family code, it basically states that the child can't own property until they're 18. And it doesn't matter who bought it. So the child can go to work at 16 and purchase their own phone with their own money, but mom and dad still dictate what happens with that phone.
So as we're talking about everything we talk about today, whether it's their video game system, whether it's their cell phone, whether it's a laptop or anything along those lines, parents have the lawful right to get into that stuff.
Absolutely. And they should. It doesn't matter if the divorced parent has the kid over at their house and the other person gave them a phone. They need to be able to have access to contact that parent if they need to. But if they want to take the phone for discipline purposes, or they want to go through the phone or the computer or tablet or whatever it is, if they want to ground them from it, they have every right to do that. And a good parent will do that.
Okay. And so probably the follow-up question to that. So now we know that parents have the rights to the devices that the kid has because they don't get rights until they're 18. But should we even worry? Because this type of thing doesn't happen in Burleson. This is something that happens in like Seattle and New York and Los Angeles, those big cities that we see on the news all the time. Little old Burleson is immune from this. We have that Burleson bubble that keeps us protected from all sorts of bad things. So Cam, am I right? There's not this problem in Burleson?
I would love to say that you're right, but unfortunately I can't. We do have this problem. It's not just Burleson. This is everywhere. This is, you can have this in sleepy little town, in South Texas. You can have it in the big city of New York or Seattle that you're talking about. This problem is everywhere because wherever the internet exists, this problem exists. Wherever there's online services or opportunities, you will find predators who are looking for your children.
When it comes to the class that we're talking about, and the three of us, I'm honored to be able to serve with you guys to do this. And my part is very minimal compared to the stuff that you two go through. I get to open up a little bit, MC some of the questions at the end, and maybe kind of give a little bit more of a civilian point of view than I do the technical standards behind it. But kind of, Joe, tell me a little bit about how this class came to be. I mean, we were just sitting around one day and you just thought, hey, guys trying to, attack our kids. We should make a class out of this. Tell us how that came about.
Yeah, so I am a crime prevention specialist with the state of Texas. And to do that, you have to go through a month's worth of school. That fourth week, you go to the Texas Crime Prevention Association convention. And so got to go do that probably about 3 or 4 years ago down in McAllen, Texas. And you look at the scheduling of the classes that they're teaching. And I saw something that was about the internet class, and I was very fascinated with the syllabus on it. So I went ahead and went to the class, and it was about a 4-hour class. And about 30 minutes into the class, I was sold with all the information that I was gathering from it, and took all the information that I learned and then some, started doing my own study of what was happening in our area and what is going on in the broad version of the internet, and made this class probably in its infancy about 3 years ago, 2.5 years ago.
Right.
And then taught it once, saw where we needed to correct a couple things. And so it's been evolving ever since. But I'm not one of those that allows it to stay stagnant. As we have been talking before, is as I see things that are coming up, even if it happened today, I'm going to talk about it in that class because it's relevant and it's up to date. I want to make sure that information is current for our community and anybody beyond that, because I want them to understand what they may not understand so they can protect their children with it.
Well, we've kind of talked about that as a group, that it's not a rigid class. It's kind of an amoeba. It changes because the bad guys change. You know, when a new application comes out, they're one of the first ones to jump into it. We were discussing, I know right now, the big thing at the time of this recording that's been on the news lately has been the big conspiracy about roadblocks and how child sexual predators are just in roadblocks, and kids that down to 4, 5, 6 years of age are being solicited by these people. But even in doing that, something that you and I talked about off camera is Roblox is getting all this attention, but there's all these other video game systems and all these other apps and stuff that are just kind of falling to the wayside that nobody's talking about. So a parent takes a Roblox away from a child and says, no Roblox, but here's Minecraft, or here's Final Fantasy 14, or here's Team Fortress 2, or here's Call of Duty. Here, you can go play on those because those are safe now because it's not the big bad Roblox. The predators understand that too. So they're migrating away because that's the hot topic, but they're migrating away and still finding places to go in on all this.
And another thing too, though, is that we have to understand is something we talk about in the class is, just with 4 different apps, there's 8.765 billion people that have access to your kid. Well, just between those 4 apps, well, obviously there's not that many people on this earth that has a social media platform profile, but the essence of that is that there's bots, there's businesses, there are multiple profiles, because a pedophile is not going to have their real profile being the one that's soliciting sex from minors. A pedophile is going to have their normal profile where their family and friends see whatever it is that they do in their normal life, and then they're going to have a fake profile with a different name, different image, and everything, and that's the one they solicit from them. Well, not only are they going to have a profile on Roblox, but they're going to have a profile on all these other platforms, right? Because it's kind of like throwing the net out in the ocean and trying to catch as many fish as you can. That's the goal.
Go ahead, Cam.
I was just going to say, kind of in line with that, you think about when we were growing up, you were always told, hey, don't talk to strangers. If you're out at the park, if you're out riding your bike, the world is a very different world today than it was back then, right? People who were looking to perpetrate these types of crimes against children, they could only be at one location at one time. Now you have what is in essence a digital playground, and it opens up the opportunities, and it's as simple as being able to reach out to somebody and say, hey, whoever's playing on whatever game, whatever platform, what are y'all up to today? And once that conversation is started, it's as simple as then saying, hey, leave here and meet me on this other, platform.
Right.
Meet me on Discord. Or we've even seen it where it's, here's my phone number, start texting me. Mm-hmm. Because it's much harder to track that than it is something that's online.
Right.
For the reasons that we've talked about so far, going back to that first question of like, hey, parents feeling like they can't search a child's phone, or, I want to respect their privacy, so I'm not gonna jump in here and do that, when in essence, you have no idea who now has access to your children, because we've opened a door that we have no idea who is standing behind it or how many people are standing behind it.
Absolutely. And that's kind of a crazy thing that you and I unintentionally experienced the other day. You took a picture of yourself, just a common selfie, and you put it in AI, and you said, hey, make me look like an 8-year-old kid. And here you are, you get your headphones on, and boom, here's 8-year-old Joe. And you sent me that, and I took that picture and I downloaded it, and I threw it in another AI and say, okay, now make this a video. And within probably 45 seconds of you taking a picture, sending me the photo, I created a video of it. I mean, a 9-10 10-year-old child looking at this doesn't notice any sort of difference whatsoever. We literally created you to be a talking, moving 8-year-old kid in 45 seconds. Can you imagine somebody who's really dedicated to trying to take your children, hurt your children, sexually gratify themselves through your children, the time they will take to create an avatar that completely talks like a child, looks like a child, acts like a child. So even if they're having a video conversation back and forth, there's some 50-year-old dirty guy on one side, but he looks like an 8-year-old kid talking to your 6 or 7-year-old on the other side. And so that's, as a parent, that's a hard pill to swallow, knowing that if you just leave your children to their own curiosities, that when somebody contacts them, their brain has not understood and come to the realization of the dangers that are out there and how somebody wants to harm them. They're still in that innocent age where they're just wanting to make friends, and they think they're making just another friend that's just like them, never knowing the wolf behind the sheep's clothing.
Yep. Or their value is in how many friends, quote unquote friends, on their social media that they have. Their value is how many likes do I have on my photo? Their value is how many comments and shares do I have? And so when that is their value is based off of that, then you're allowing unfettered access to your child at that point.
Right.
Something to add to what you're saying, though, is somebody might ask, well, how does a 50-year-old man know how to talk like an 8-year-old? Well, that's super easy. All you got to do is just talk normal into the AI platform and then tell AI to say, hey, I need you to convert this into an 8-year-old talking points. I need you to use memes. I need you to use Gen Z talk, whatever it is, like whatever the languages of that day. And if you don't know any of that stuff, you can just say, hey, make this sound like kids that is an 8-year-old today, how they talk and whatever they use in acronyms, make them, or make what I said, say that. And 5 seconds later, it's done. You copy and paste into your text or your chat or whatever it is that you're messaging back and forth with. And how would anybody know?
Well, and the other aspect of that is, like, there's absolutely sinister people who are using that method, right? A lot of these people know that children are craving adult attention. So sometimes it's just as simple as them saying, oh, yeah, I was playing with my kid that they may or may not have.
Right.
But now I'm just on here doing my thing. And once this child is being shown attention by who they think is a wholesome adult, it just opens that door. It can be as simple as that. We've seen it be as simple as that. We've seen it be as sinister as people using extreme levels of subterfuge to get to these children. Yeah. So, the level of intricacies that these people go to varies depending on what stage of life they're in. But, it's something where parents need to be aware of that spectrum of how their child can be accessed once they have been given a game platform that opens them up to everyone on the web.
Let's talk a little bit about that. As we've been sitting here and we've been talking about these people that are trying to either trick your child or use child psychology to meet your child. We talk a lot about the word grooming. We talk a lot about sexual predator. Give me the understanding of what these people are doing. Why are they doing this? Is it all just for sexual gratification? Are there alternate motives? I mean, what are some of the kind of the big top 10s of why people are doing this?
So, from my perspective, I would say that a large part of it, especially when you're talking about grooming, does come down to sexually based desires, right? You get the pedophile who wants to gain access to a child so that they can eventually either engage in some form of online sexual activity with them or meet them in person to be able to abuse them sexually in that manner.
But let's not vanilla coat any of this. What ages are we talking about?
It as young as are able to operate on a tablet, on anything. If you've got, and kids today are far more capable with electronics than we are, right? I've seen kids as young as 4 or 5 years old playing on tablets and playing on these online games. That child now has access to every other human being on the planet in theory, right? So if you've got, if they log into Roblox and let's say there's 500 million people on that game at that time, that's 500 million people that has access to your child. And if one of them has an interest in children and they find out how old your child is, and that's the age thereafter, well, guess what? They're going to keep going. Yeah. And we've seen that. We've made arrests where that's one of the first questions that gets asked is, how old are you? Right? Because they want to know who they're talking to. Are they talking to an adult? Are they talking to a child? Once they know they're talking to a child, well, how old of a child are you? Right? Do you fall in to that age category that I'm sexually interested in as a pedophile? And once they know, it just that ball's already in motion.
And when you say one of the first questions you ask, that is us as a department or an agency, a federal agency, some sort of agency that is essentially pretending to be somebody at that age looking for these predators.
It can be that, but I've seen it in cases that we've worked where like an online solicitation of a minor case, right? Your suspect is talking to someone on the internet or on a gaming platform, and they say, "Hey, I'm Bob. Who are you?" "Oh, I'm, whoever." And the conversation gets going. Inevitably, within that first few questions, if that's a pedophile who's looking to get their hands on a child, how old are you? "Oh, I'm this old." "Okay." And then they keep going, right?
And your child's not thinking about, they're answering a question. They're not even remotely thinking about.
And they don't have the fear that we had growing up of strangers, right? Because how is someone in their mind, how is someone who is on the other side of the internet going to harm them?
Right.
They're not there in person. It's not like the fear that we had growing up that somebody was going to snatch us into a van from the park and drive us off and we'd never be seen again.
Right.
These kids think they're just talking to harmless individuals on the internet. And they don't understand the dangers that exist because these people can now start trying to track down where this child is and come find them in person if they want to.
Well, and even in the class, we show a video, and it's it really is a joke video that a guy put out there on the internet, but it really gives you a better understanding of what we're talking about, where he's a avatar, but like a little anime character, and the voices change to sound like a little anime girl, and he's just dancing in his little avatar world. Everything is digital, and he's on I think he's on Omegle, and he pops up, and there's two young, probably teens age, and they're laughing, and he's carrying on a conversation. He says something like, "Hey, let's go to outer space. It's a digital world. We can do that." And the girl's like, "Yeah, absolutely." And I'm going to click this button real quick. And he clicks it. And the comedy is when he clicks it, he reveals himself to be this, 40, 50-year-old dude in his mom's basement wearing a wife beater shirt with VR goggles on. He thinks he's switched it over to a thing. Now, the girls are laughing, and the people that are watching it are getting a kind of a laughing joke kick out of it. But we show that video to be a little bit of a lighter mood, but the message behind it is extremely serious. That even in that jovial, joking way that this guy is, he's essentially trolling these kids. But there's a serious aspect behind it, because those girls never once thought, "Oh, here's some 50-year-old dude that is talking to us." All they see is this small little avatar. And it goes back to what you're saying. You've got a 4 or 5, 6-year-old kid that's running on Roblox or whatever platform they're rolling on. It's a digital avatar. It's a little pony, or it's a little anime character, or it's Fluffy, or whatever it is. They don't look at that as the dude in the hoodie walking up to you asking if you want some candy in a playground. There's a total different psychological look when you're looking at this cute avatar digital character and they're asking you questions, versus some dude that would walk up and immediately ask, "Hey, hey, kid, you want some candy?" We all grew up in that age where don't talk to strangers, don't go to a stranger's car, and then we also had that aspect of our parent most likely being right next to you, because parents were drilled. You always keep an eye on your kids. And how many episodes of whatever Law and Order show did we see because a mom got on her phone and the kid disappears, and there's an hour-long chasing down that child episode, and it puts that fear back into that parent. But essentially, parents are going here and handing a phone and walking away and giving the world access to your kids.
Yeah.
It's like literally walking the guy up by hand and saying, hey, offer my kids some candy. I'm going to go over here and hang out for a little bit. Have a good day, sir.
Yeah. And talking about that video that you're talking about outer space and stuff like that, we purposely put it where it is for comedic relief.
Yeah.
It has that underlying message that we want to say, hey, you really don't ever know who you're talking to, but because of the content that is in this class, we definitely wanted to have that little bit of break in there to go back.
It's pretty heavy coming up.
It
to
does.
That. Yeah.
It does. Absolutely. To go back to the question you had though, why do people do this? And it is because of sexual gratification, but there's others. There's power and control. Just the mere fact that they can have power and control from wherever they're at over that person.
I explain that a little bit.
So you could tell a pedophile might say, hey, I need you to send me a video of you nude doing something to yourself, and they'll give them the direction of what they want them to do, and they will be specific of what they want, and if they don't send it, then they will ruin their world, because they will send what they do have to their parents, or they'll send what they do have to family members, and they'll go to their house because they've gained information about this person during that time of talking to them, that they probably know where they live. They probably know what school they go to. They know information that this person knows they know. And if I don't give them this information, then they're going to hurt my family, type of thing. So
let me play devil's advocate on that one. I'm the parent and I say, okay, but my kid would never, you heard that one before.
Oh,
not
yeah.
my kid.
All the time.
My kid would never either A, fall for that, or if it ever got that bad, they would come to me and talk to me. True or false? I'm a sane parent when I say those words.
Not sane. That is false. And you would hope that they would do that. But here's the problem. The problem is that they think that you're going to get mad at them and take their phone away from them. And you might. There are consequences they're going to have to face. Yes. But they think that their world is going to be over at that point, and that you are not a safe person to go to for help.
I would agree with that. The other aspect of it is kind of going back to what Officer Byram was talking about, is it's a control aspect, right? Mm-hmm. These kids who find themselves in this situation where they're being victimized through the internet, through online means, they are told by the suspect, if you go to your parents, I'm going to release these images. I'm going to send these images that you've already provided, not only to your parents, I'll send it to your whole family. I'll send it to all of your friends because I've got your contact list. Mm. Right? When you clicked on this, it allowed me to gain access to your phone or to whatever platform you're on, and now I know all this stuff. And whether that's the case or not, when you're talking about a child whose brain isn't fully developed yet, there's a level of fear that goes into that. And when people are afraid, they don't tend to think rationally. They tend to think about self-preservation. And if self-preservation is the means of, I'll just keep sending what this person wants to avoid the embarrassment of having my images leaked, that's what they're going to do. And it's unfortunate. We've seen it hundreds, if not thousands of times where, some young teenager sends out images that they think are going to go to one person who's going to hold on to them.
Right.
And they never do. Those images get leaked. It gets sent to a friend who sends it to a friend who sends it to a friend.
Which ends up being cyberbullying at that point.
Absolutely.
No.
There's any number of elements that we can look at it from a criminal aspect, but from a personal aspect, what this child is going through is an extreme sense of fear, mm-hmm. because they don't want, just as much as they're afraid of mom and dad being mad, they also don't want to face the potential embarrassment and the judgment that will come from family and friends of, how could you do this? How could you fall for this? How could you send these types of images? Mm-hmm. But that's what we're up against. That's why we're doing this educational outreach, to try to help parents understand that it's a very different world their children are growing up in, and they need to be aware of what their children are up against, because ultimately it's on the parents to make sure that their child has as minimal risks as possible out there.
And we have a name for that. It's extortion, but we have that as a, I'm throwing y'all a softball. This should be an easy answer.
Sextortion.
Sextortion.
Yeah, so that was the next realm too, and it goes with the sextortion is for monetary gains. And so, but that could be monetary gains as if you send an image of yourself or a video of yourself in compromised situations, doing things to yourself that I told you to do, and I take that, then I can do multiple things with that. I can say either pay me $3,000, $30,000, $300,000, or I'm going to release this to all of your family. Or I might take that and have a dark web or a private server set up, whatever, and sell it to other pedophiles and make money off of selling it to them as well, or sharing or whatever. But then I could be a part of a group that we've talked about before that actually just popped up just 3 months ago. It's called 764. It's just a satanic cult, and there's many like it. That's not the only one, but they will do things that is kind of along the lines of sextortion, but it's not just sextortion. They will make you do things that has nothing to do with nudity, but they want videos of it or images of it, because then they put it on video on different platforms, and when people view it, those views make them money.
So to the parents that are listening right now, and so that's a general term, give me some specifics on some of the things they're wanting these kids to do in order to make money off of.
Yeah, so they'll tell them, take a razor blade and carve a pentagram on your chest and videotape it while you do it. They'll tell them, they'll ask them, do you have a family cat or dog? And if they do, they'll tell them to slit their animal's throat and have it on video. They'll have them do drugs, whatever it is, and then see the outcome of it. I'm like, whatever it is. The most recent one 3 months ago was over in another state. I can't remember which state it was. I want to say Arizona, Vermont, something like that. Okay. So, but a young girl was roped into this group because of her online footprint, got her tied into it, and she couldn't get out of it. She felt, I'm sure. And she ended up being a part of a deal where they called the school, the group 764, whoever this person was,
right,
somewhere in the world, but they called a school in her area and said, we have placed devices outside the school, and if they don't detonate, we will come in and we will kill everybody with a gun. And she was a part of that somehow, to where the police got involved and pretty much made an arrest on her because they believed that she was involved in that. Come to find out, she was actually a victim in that,
right,
but still a suspect in it. So
she's got those connections. She's feeling kind of like what Sergeant Pilgrim's saying. They have that fear of that punishment, and the fear of punishment from their parents, but they would be involved in a hoax, online bombing, and mass casualty event rather than getting in trouble at home.
Yep.
And that goes right back to what you're saying about a child's brain is not developed enough to fully comprehend and understand not only the consequences, but what this realm of torture essentially these people are putting them.
Absolutely
is. You and I have talked on multiple occasions about the other child that is created when something like this happens. And can you go a little bit more detail to kind of explain to people watching this, when a child goes through some sort of sexual grooming or molestation or anything to that effect, the psychology that child deals with throughout their life?
So yeah, that's a whole nother aspect of this that a lot of times people don't know about. In fact, I didn't know about it till a few years ago when I got to go to the Crimes Against Children conference in Dallas. And the speaker was talking about what happens to your child at the time that they are sexually abused. And ultimately what it comes down to is that it alters the chemical makeup of your child's brain forever. So the child that you had is not the child you have anymore. It's not a complete rewrite. It's not like you're getting a child that you have to start back over at square one, but certain aspects of your child are forever altered because they've experienced something at an age that they should not have experienced it at. And because of that, your child now has, for a lack of better words, they have an emotional scar that you are going to have to try to lessen its impact over time through therapy, through treatment to help them come to terms with what happened to them and to understand that it's not their fault that it happened. I think that's a big part of victimization and the stigma that still is attached to survivors of sexual abuse is that there's this aspect, completely unjustified, but there's so many people that have this, well, what were you doing to get yourself into that situation? And I think that plays back into that aspect of when a suspect is exploiting a child, and it goes into that fear mindset of people are going to blame you for this.
Right.
This is your fault. And it's not their fault at all. They have no blame in that. That's the person who's abusing them. It's their fault. But because they can manipulate through that, it allows them to maintain control. But just that understanding that once your child experiences this, they will forever be different. Right. That to me is just, it's hard to wrap your mind around because you're used to seeing your child one way.
Yeah.
And then when you realize, hey, someone took my child and changed them for the rest of their life and gave them something they have to carry for the rest of their life, that's a heavy burden to bear.
We're all dads. We all have kids around the same age, and I can't imagine my little girl that runs around with her unicorn doll, or she's into Pokemon right now. So I'm hitting up Geek Out all the time. And the great thing is she doesn't understand the difference between an expensive card and a cheap one. Mm-hmm. And so she's like, look at this one, it's shiny. I'm like, yeah, that one's 5 cents. That was a cute one.
That was a good one.
But exactly. I'm just waiting for the day that she's like, but I need to go to the convention. I need $1,000 for one card.
Yeah.
But that innocence that she has, and that to know that somebody in this world has the power to destroy that. As a father, if my kid was sitting in a room and a guy walked in and you tell me this guy's about to do this thing to them, and here's a stick, here's a gun, here's a machete, here's whatever you have to do to defend your child. I don't care how many years I'm gone for. I don't care how many years they have to put me in prison. That person will never harm my child.
Yep.
And yet I will hand her a phone.
Yep.
And do the exact same thing.
Yep.
When calling the other dark, even the darker side of that people don't realize is there's one other, probably not just one other, but a major venue that also opens your child up to, which is after they've been perpetrated against, not only do they have to deal with the chemical alteration in their brain, it also opens the door for them to become a sexual predator in the future. There's a lot of research out there that shows children who are sexually abused will go on to sexually abuse children. And so it is a, Joe uses the term in his portion of the class, but he talks about the vicious cycle.
Yeah.
And that's what it is. It is a vicious, destructive cycle because it doesn't just ruin that child's life. It destroys entire families. And so you're already trying to process your child being a victim. And then if they don't receive the help that they need and they go on and they stop, they'll never stop being the victim.
Yeah.
But then all of a sudden they become the suspect.
Good.
Yeah. Trying to process that and deal with that
when you say these words and you listen to it online and you hear it, you almost hear it as this other person's child. When that happens to that other person's child, when it's that's so sad for this other person's child. But when you truly sit back and you think of it as my kid, what am I doing to protect my kid? What am I doing to put up the checks and balances? And something you mentioned in class, a lot of this starts at the home.
Yep.
It starts at the parenting side of it. It starts at a mom and dad, and not everybody has the fortunate life to have both mom and dad in the picture. And mom's struggling or dad's struggling as a single parent, and they're having to work more time than they're not, so they're not home all the time, and so their kids are turnkey. They come home, lock the door behind them, and I would hope they go straight to their studies and their prayers and then go to bed. But
in a perfect world,
in the perfect world, yeah. But so they're immediately onto a video game. They're immediately onto an app. They're immediately onto something. And if that parent hasn't set up at least started to put those parameters and those guides in there, and in our you say it in the class. I love the fact you're like, hey, when you're walking down the hallway and they're coming down the other way, kids are always
snatch the phone out of there,
snatch that phone right out of their hand, and say, I'm going to go take this for a few minutes and go through everything.
You know, we cover things that you want to look for in the phone in the class as well. And something else we haven't touched on yet either is sex trafficking. Is through these apps, through the online profile of these children, they could get into a situation where they are tired of mom and dad. They're tired of being grounded. They're tired of having to do laundry or the chores or getting in trouble or whatever it is. And like you said before, Cam, is they meet somebody online that maybe an older person, and they get me. They understand who I am. And they tell me that mom and dad, your mom and dad don't understand you like I do. They would never get you like I do. And then at one point, something happens that caused that child to leave the house and go make contact with their friend. And then 3 days later, they're in New York being sold over and over and over every day. Because one thing that we talk about is with drugs, you sell it once. And once you sell it and you use it, it's gone.
Right.
But with a person, you can sell that person over and over 20 to 60 or more times a day, every day, and make money off of it.
Yeah, it's definitely a dark aspect of society when you think about the sex trafficking, side of things. And, we've talked about it. We've already mentioned it, but ultimately it comes down to manipulation of your child. Right. And you think about how easily adults can be manipulated, not even necessarily from a sexual standpoint, but just you get someone who's stressed out and they get that fraud phone call and, hey, the IRS is you owe us money. And if you don't go throw $5,000 on Apple gift cards, you're going to jail, and people fall for that. And these are people who are, they've been through life. They've had those experiences. They know what bad guys look like, at least in theory, what good guys look like, and who's doing right versus who's doing wrong. But yet we expect our children to have that when they don't have near the life experience that we do.
Yeah.
And so we throw them out there, very unintentionally, but we're basically throwing them to the wolves. And so when you find someone who gets in contact with that child and begins to emotionally manipulate them, that is a control aspect where they can say, hey, I'm going to minimize your trust in your parents, who should be the people you trust the most, and I'm going to increase your trust in me, even though I know that I'm up to no good. Right? I've got this sinister idea of what it is I want from you, but I'm going to make you trust me more than mom and dad. And so you see that distance grow between parent and child, and then all of a sudden, like Joe said, boom, child's gone.
It's like a child's psychology. And I'm going to throw you another softball. It's not like there's a rule book or a guidebook that these, sexual predators could possibly access and learn about these things. So, at least they're just going off on their own, trying to figure out how to do this, right?
If only. So it's a good segue to talk about some of the things that I do professionally speaking. We get to work with the Internet Crimes Against Children Task Force. They're based out of, there's multiple ones in the state. The one that we're a part of is based out of Dallas, and it's basically 116 counties across the north. We work closely with them, and they provided basically the pedophiles playbook, right? It was a 170 slide PowerPoint presentation that tells pedophiles basically steps 1 through however many, this is how you groom a child. And not just the child, it's how you groom the parents. Now, this has been around for 20 years, right? We come to find out this has been around for a while, because a lot of what they talk about is from our generation of, hey, how do you get in with the parents? How do you gain the parents' trust? Right? Because you really have to have that before you can make a move on a child. And so they go into playing how to do that, how to get them on board so that you can start accessing their child. But those same principles that they're talking about and that they're using child psychology to accomplish, they still apply to what we see on the internet today. It's the same thing. It's just a different, medium, if you will, that they're going through. They don't have to do it in person. They don't have to meet your child at a physical location, because they've got access to them through an IP address and a gaming system.
One of the things that I do for the police department is run the social media. So we posted about the class that we were holding at the Brick, and a lot of the comments, always 98% are always positive, and then you got those 2% that are just, you're like, whatever. One of them that was a whatever, but also kind of punched me in the chest, was somebody that had written something about, like, oh yeah, I'm sure most of these people are like youth pastors. And then another one that said, yeah, and a lot of these guys are cops too, but y'all aren't ready to have that conversation. And both of those, I was just like, dude, that's wrong. You shouldn't say those things. I get to the class without even telling you guys about these 2 comments. And one of the things y'all both say are, yeah, this type of handbook that teaches you how to infiltrate. You can be a pediatric nurse or work in daycare as a male, who most of the time you're going to be in there with females, but it gives you a play-by-play on what to say during your interview of why as a male you should be in this type of thing. And then both of you have referenced in the past, yeah, and they get into the police force, and they get into ministry, and they get into the school system. And it's not, nobody is immune to somebody finding their way into a place where we think those are our safety people. Those are the people that we can trust. Those are the people that nobody has a question on, saying, hey, I'm going over to my youth pastor's house, or I'm hanging out with my SRO, and nobody thinks twice about that person being somebody who has strategically worked their way into a place to be around kids, who can manipulate them, molest them, abuse them, and because of that trust factor and the fear that we've talked about, won't say anything about it. And that's why I think a lot of times we see those news articles about the guy that comes out and says, well, 32 years ago, somebody, at the Cub Scouts, they molested me. And you're like, oh, the Cub Scouts are evil. They're not, but an evil person found their way into the Cub Scouts because that's where the Cub Scouts are.
Absolutely. And I'll say this, I've known Cam for 25 years or more. And we went to high school together and everything. So I know for a fact that if that were to happen in the city of Burleson, or even with a Burleson police officer, that we would go after them just like anybody else. Good. Because we're not going to stand for that.
Yeah.
That we're not, if that person makes it, is probably because they had a clean background, because they normally do. They normally haven't been caught yet, or maybe they're just starting in their whatever they're doing here. Mm-hmm. But at one point, they're going to slip up. And when that happens, at least I can speak for the Burleson Police Department, is that we're going to follow through with that, and we're going to do what we can to take that person into custody.
Yeah, that's, I use the term in the class, but these people are really, they're the ultimate chameleon. They know how to adapt their image to their surroundings.
Right.
So that they blend in, because they can't draw attention to themselves, right? If they walk in with a sign that says, I'm here to do bad things to your children, everyone's going to close ranks and say wrong again, right? Just like you were talking about, like, hey, if somebody came in and said they're going to hurt their child, you'll do whatever it takes, right? Any parent that loves their child is going to do that. But they don't come in that way. They come in, we talk about, they could be a police officer, it could be a minister. There's examples of both of those where, unfortunately, those professions get a bad rap because someone in them has done bad things. It doesn't necessarily have to be a person of that high of trust either. Right? The document that we've referenced a handful of times, it talks about how to select single moms who have children and how to play on those moms' emotions so that they can get into a relationship with them and they can have access to their children. It literally is any person who wants access to a child for deviant reasons, they're going to do whatever it takes to get that. Right. And so, we stand against it. We do our best to deal with it when it comes up, but we're also doing this right now because we want to prevent that.
Yeah.
Nothing would make me happier than to be worked out of that aspect of my job.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I can understand that.
Absolutely. And that's the big part of why I 3 or 4 years ago when I went to that class and saw that, and I'm like, we need to get that because it's only going to get worse. Especially where we're going now, not only with AI, but now virtual reality and how accessible that is getting. And when I say accessible, how people are able to afford that stuff now.
Yeah.
And so if you've got 3 kids, it's getting to that point now that you can pretty much purchase virtual reality goggles for all 3 kids because technology is getting cheaper because it's getting easier to make with smaller chips and all that. But we are increasing the risk for our children by doing that. And so, like you said, putting this class on is really important because we want to educate. I don't want to be a part of a department that's only reactive. I want to be a part of a department that is a front leader in our profession that is being proactive, educating our community to where they are partnering with us and we are partnering with them. I mean, that's our motto, in partnership with the community. It's on all of our cars.
Yeah.
And so we want to build that partnership and the community aspect with our community, with our churches, with our schools, with everything. And abroad, I'm even making a lesson plan for this class because I'm willing to not make a police department reinvent the wheel. I am willing to give this class to any police department in the United States that wants it with the lesson plan.
Yeah.
And here you go. If you have questions, let me know. The only thing I ask is as technology changes, as the risks change, as the way pedophiles do things change, like just keep on studying it, keep on updating the PowerPoint and lesson plan. That way you can provide the most up-to-date information for your community to make our community stronger.
Well, if you're going to be proactive in the crime aspect, you got to be proactive in the class aspect.
Absolutely.
You can't just sit back on your laurels. With that, let's close with this. I think we've talked a lot about the class. I think we've given a pretty good 30,000 foot overview of what we discuss and we talk about. In the description, whether on Facebook or watch this on YouTube, we will have a link that will send you to a page that if this is a class that you would like to have taught at your school, your church, your business, we've fortunately been able to do this class in front of 14 people and have a really good, almost a one-on-one experience with a group. And we've taught it in front of over 100 people and it really had that ability to hear the masses. We'll be teaching this at the end of the month to around 300 people. So it really doesn't matter on the size of your group. If you want us to come and talk about it, we absolutely will. We encourage you to at least check the link. And maybe it's just a neighborhood association that says, hey, we want to be proactive and keeping our kids safe. Could you come and teach it? Absolutely. It's about 45 minutes of what you two do, and then about 45 minutes afterwards for Q&A, but we'll go longer if necessary. So.
Absolutely. And Colin, maybe we can put a link to, we have a reference guide for parents and guardians that we've made. It's about 19 pages long, and I'm continuously adding to it as I become knowledgeable and stuff as I'm studying it and everything. Maybe we can put that link in there. That way they can have access to that. Yeah. Anytime they need to.
And that's a good way of ending it, because one of the things that was asked is, hey, would you mind teaching this online? Can you teach this online? And the one thing that we discussed and prevented us from actually just teaching the class and sticking it online is in 3 weeks, a new app comes out.
Yep.
In 3 weeks, a new challenge happens. In 3 weeks, something. So this is, again, it's not a rigid class. It's an amoeba. It's constantly changing. So I'd much rather get the understanding aspect of what the class teaches and then offer it to people, because what we taught for those 14 people the very first time that we kind of launched this class to what we're teaching the 300 people in the end of this month, it may have totally different things that we talk about. It's all the same but different, if that makes sense.
Absolutely.
So, all right, guys, thank you again for watching us on Unfiltered. We'll have our next episode as soon as we possibly can. Again, check the links for all the things that we've discussed. And dude, guys, y'all are making a difference. I really appreciate y'all being here.
Thanks. Thank you.
All right, brothers.